Smoke drifted through the broken skies of Ardan Prime, a world that had suffered for years under the raiding fleets of the Krovan Dominion. The alien armies had left cities in ruins, enslaved families, and stripped the planet of hope. But today, for the first time in decades, the sky did not belong to them. It belonged to the humans. Commander Darius Kane stood on the shattered ridge overlooking the valley. His armor was scorched, his weapons nearly empty, but his heart still beat with fire. He had led his soldiers, human marines and allied fighters, through a desperate campaign. The Krovans had expected the humans to break, yet it was the alien fleet that burned now, scattered wreckage streaking across the sky like falling stars. Darius looked around at his surviving soldiers. They were bruised, exhausted, and bloodied, but they were alive. Humanity had done what no other race dared. They had turned a hopeless fight into a victory. The alien High Council gathered in the Great Hall of Ardan's capital soon after. The chamber, built from polished black stone, echoed with voices in many languages. Tall reptilian lords, insectoid delegates, and feathered diplomats filled the seats. They all looked toward the human warrior who had made this day possible. The High Speaker, an ancient alien with silver scales, rose. "Commander Darius Kane," his voice thundered, "you have delivered us from the Krovan scourge. By your hands thousands live. By your courage our worlds are free. Today you are owed a reward. Speak, and it shall be granted." Whispers filled the chamber. Every warrior in history had asked for power, wealth, or glory. It was tradition. Some demanded planets as their prize. Others claimed titles of nobility. Everyone waited to hear what this strange human would say. Darius stepped forward. His armor was still cracked, dust from the battlefield clinging to him. He bowed his head slightly, then raised his eyes to meet the council. "I fought for freedom, not riches," he said, his voice steady. "I do not need a throne or gold. My reward is simple. I will take her." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Fingers pointed. Heads turned. At the far edge of the room sat a woman, small, fragile, almost invisible in her plain gray robe. She sat apart from the nobles, her posture shy, her hands folded in silence. She looked nothing like the proud daughters of powerful houses who often became rewards for warriors. She was not decorated, not honored, not even introduced. The council stared at Darius in disbelief. "Her?" one alien lord spat. "She is no one, weak, useless, a servant at best." But Darius did not waver. "Yes," he said simply. "She." The woman, startled, looked up. Her wide violet eyes met his, filled with confusion. She seemed as if no one had ever spoken her name in such a place, let alone chosen her before all the galaxy. The High Speaker narrowed his eyes. "You could claim treasures beyond measure. Entire fleets, worlds, or eternal honor. And you choose her?" Darius gave a faint smile. "Because she looked like no one else saw her. That is reason enough." The chamber erupted in laughter and outrage. Nobles sneered, muttering that humans were fools. Others whispered that the warrior had gone mad. But the speaker finally raised his hand for silence. "So be it," the old alien declared. "Your victory cannot be denied. Your choice, however strange, shall be honored. She is yours." The frail woman rose slowly. Her steps were hesitant as she walked toward Darius. The council's eyes followed, some mocking, some curious. When she reached him, she lowered her gaze. I don't understand," she whispered. "You don't have to," Darius replied, his tone calm but firm. "No one should be left unseen. Not while I still breathe." For a moment she simply stared at him, as though searching for mockery or hidden motive. But she found none. The chamber's business moved on, but the seed of rumor had already been planted. Everywhere in the galaxy, when news of the victory spread, so too did whispers of the human who refused crowns and treasures, only to claim a woman no one valued. When they left the hall, the woman followed closely behind Darius, her steps quiet, her head lowered. Soldiers and diplomats passed them, some chuckling, others shaking their heads. Kane ignored them all. On the landing platform where human dropships waited, Darius finally turned to her. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then spoke softly. "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated, nodding. "You don't have to thank me. I didn't choose you because I expect something. I chose you because the galaxy treated you like you were nothing. I know what that feels like." Her eyes flickered with something unreadable. Surprise, perhaps even fear. She had lived in the shadows, unseen for so long. Now, chosen by the warrior who had crushed the Krovans, her life had changed in a single moment. That night, as the humans prepared to depart Ardan Prime, Lyra sat in the corner of the ship's quarters. She watched Darius speak with his officers, planning their next move. She studied him quietly, wondering why he had done what no one else would have dared. Unbeknownst to the humans, whispers spread among the alien council chambers. Many nobles laughed at Kane's foolishness, calling him blind. But others grew nervous, remembering old secrets and hidden bloodlines, because Lyra was not as weak as she seemed, and Darius Kane, without knowing it, had just chosen a path that would shake the galaxy itself. The stars stretched endlessly outside the observation deck, their cold light shimmering across the human ship. Commander Darius Kane stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the darkness. Victory over the Krovan fleet had brought relief to the galaxy, but peace rarely lasted long after war. Lyra followed him quietly. She had not spoken much since the council chamber, unsure of her place in this strange new world. She was small, delicate, and had grown used to being ignored, but now for the first time she had someone who saw her. "You don't have to stand there like a soldier," Darius said, glancing at her over his shoulder. "Come, see the stars." She hesitated, then stepped closer. Her eyes widened at the sight, a panorama of galaxies, nebulae, and distant suns. She had never traveled beyond the pale skies of her home city, let alone seen the universe laid out like this. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Darius smiled faintly. "It is, but the universe can be cruel too. That's why it needs people who will fight, and people who will protect. You'll have to learn both." Lyra blinked. I don't know if I can. I am weak. I have never fought. I have never done anything worth noticing." "You've already done something worth noticing," Darius said quietly. "You survived when everyone else gave up on you. That alone makes you stronger than most." She looked down at her hands, unsure how to respond. Survival had been her only skill, her only refuge. No one had cared about her strength, or noticed that she had any. And now this human warrior treated her like she mattered. The ship's crew, however, did not share Kane's view. Whispers followed Lyra wherever she went. Humans were practical. They understood courage. But even they could not ignore how strange it was for their commander to choose someone so frail. "She's a child," muttered Lieutenant Marcus, a veteran human soldier shaking his head. Why would Kane pick her? There were dozens of people, brilliant strategists, warriors who could lead fleets. "Because he sees something in her we don't," replied another officer, Sergeant Lila Tran. "Something hidden. You just don't know it yet." Lyra overheard them. Her face flushed, but she remained silent. She had spent her life avoiding attention. Now, it seemed, attention had found her, and she was unsure whether to welcome it or run. That evening, Kane led her to the ship's training deck. The room was equipped with various devices for combat practice, tactical simulations, and even basic survival drills. Lyra's stomach tightened. "I'm not a fighter," she said nervously. "You will learn," Kane replied firmly. "Not because I expect you to kill anyone, but because you need to survive. And perhaps because you have more power than you realize." Lyra shook her head. "I don't." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Really? You survived Krovan raids. You moved through cities no one dared enter. You hid while others were captured. That is power, quiet, hidden, but power nonetheless." She looked away, uncertain how to respond. Her life had been spent in shadows, unnoticed. The idea that someone recognized her abilities, even small ones, was both frightening and strange. Training began slowly. Kane showed her basic moves: how to balance, how to fall without injury, how to observe her surroundings. He did not push her too hard, but he expected her to practice every day. Lyra struggled at first, tripping over her own feet, misjudging distances and failing simple exercises. Yet Kane never scolded her. Instead, he encouraged her with patient words and small corrections. "You can do this," he said one day, helping her to her feet after a stumble. "You're not as weak as you think. Every step forward counts." Weeks passed and Lyra's body grew stronger, more confident, but her mind began to show something even stranger. She noticed patterns in the ship's systems that others missed. Instruments that were malfunctioning corrected themselves when she was nearby. Navigation errors seemed less frequent when she monitored them. At first, she thought it was coincidence. Then she realized it was not. Her presence affected the machines. She could not explain it. No one had taught her these things. No one had ever noticed them before. One night, while inspecting the ship's sensors, she felt a sudden tremor in her chest. The lights flickered, and an alert flashed on the control panel. Without thinking, she placed her hands on the console. The warning. The ship glided silently through the black void. Stars like distant sparks scattered across the endless darkness. Inside, life had settled into a cautious routine. Commander Darius Kane oversaw repairs, strategized for the next missions, and trained his crew, while Lyra began to find her place among them. The crew still whispered behind her back. Many could not understand why their commander had chosen someone so frail. Some were impatient, expecting her to prove herself in the ways of soldiers. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons drills, or command of a battle station. But Kane knew that strength was not always obvious. He had seen it on the battlefield in survival and in quiet courage. He also sensed there was more to Lyra than anyone realized. One afternoon, as Lyra walked along the ship's corridors, she noticed the sensors flickering. Alarms that usually took the crew minutes to respond to cleared instantly when she touched the control panel. She stepped back in surprise, heart racing. Lieutenant Marcus, passing by, noticed. "What just happened?" he asked, eyes wide. I don't know," Lyra admitted softly. "It just fixed itself." Marcus frowned but said nothing more. He had witnessed many strange things in his years among the stars, but he had never seen a human or alien capable of affecting machines by mere presence. That evening, Kane called her to the training deck. The room, normally used for combat drills, was empty except for a few human Marines practicing maneuvers. "You feel it, don't you?" Kane asked quietly, stepping close. Lyra looked at him, startled. "Feel what?" "The power you cannot explain," he said. "You've sensed it before. Machines, signals, even the way people react around you. There is something there. Something strong. And it is not dangerous unless ignored." Lyra shook her head. "I don't understand it. I have never done anything like this before." "Maybe you have," Kane replied. "You just didn't know it. Not everyone is born to fight with weapons. Some fight with their mind. Some fight with influence. Some with things they cannot see. You are one of them." Her eyes widened. "One of who?" "Someone special," he said simply. "Someone who will make a difference in ways most cannot even imagine." Lyra wanted to ask more, but before she could, an alert blared across the ship. Red lights flashed, and a voice shouted over the intercom. "Warning. Unknown vessel approaching. Identification incomplete." Kane moved quickly to the bridge. Lyra followed, heart pounding. The view screen revealed a sleek, black alien ship gliding toward them, weapons glinting under distant stars. It was a raid vessel, small but fast, likely seeking to test human defenses or capture something valuable. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Kane ordered. "Crew stations. All weapons ready." The humans worked swiftly, adjusting shields and powering weapons. Lyra felt a strange pull in her chest, a quiet urging to step forward. Before she knew it, her hands hovered over the tactical console. Numbers and signals danced before her eyes. Without fully understanding how, she adjusted a few controls. The ship's shield stabilized, its weapons recalibrated, and the vessel responded with precision that stunned the crew. Marcus stared at her. "How did you—" Lyra did not answer. She did not understand herself. Kane, however, remained calm. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Good," he said. "Focus on what you can do. The rest will follow." The enemy vessel fired, but their shots were easily deflected. Kane's human crew maneuvered with skill, but Lyra's subtle adjustments made the difference between danger and disaster. After a tense 10 minutes, the raid ship disengaged, retreating into the stars. The bridge was silent for a moment, the crew processing what had just happened. Kane finally spoke. "Lyra, that is your first battle. You may not have fired a shot, but you saved this ship and everyone aboard. That is more than most warriors can claim." Lyra felt a mixture of fear and pride. She had never imagined she could do something so important. Yet beneath her relief, questions churned. What was this power? Why had it awakened now? Over the next few days, she experimented cautiously. Machines and consoles seemed to respond to her presence. Even small errors corrected themselves when she concentrated. She began to wonder if her weakness had been an illusion all along. Perhaps it had been a mask she wore for survival. Kane noticed the change. He did not question her, only guided her. "Control comes first," he advised. "Power without control can be dangerous. You are learning quickly, and that is a good sign." The crew, initially skeptical, began to notice subtle differences. Shields maintained their strength longer. Communications cleared faster. Systems operated with unusual efficiency. Whispers spread, "She is different," Lila Tran said quietly. "I don't understand it, but she helps us. Even without training, she helps us." Marcus grunted, reluctant to admit it, but nodded. "I still don't like it. But Rico, she saved our skins. I'll give her that." Lyra, for her part, remained cautious. She knew she could do more, but she also knew the galaxy was watching. Rumors traveled faster than light, and she had already been noticed by powers far beyond their ship. One night, while observing distant stars, she confided in Kane. "I feel strange. Sometimes I know things before they happen. I see patterns I don't understand. I feel energy I cannot control." Kane listened quietly, then spoke. "It's okay. You are not alone. Many who are different feel this way. It is part of who you are. You have been underestimated your whole life. That is about to change." Lyra's violet eyes glimmered. "Do you really think I can become strong?" "I do," Kane said firmly. "Strength is not only in muscle or weapons. It is in courage, in choices, and in the will to act when others cannot. You already possess that. Now you are learning how to use what lies beneath." The bond between them grew stronger. Kane did not treat her as a burden or a prize, but as someone who could grow into her own power. And for Lyra, that trust became a beacon. She began to believe that her life could be more than survival. She could be more than weak. But not all watched her growth with kindness. Far across the galaxy, agents of the Alien Council whispered. They had not forgotten the human warrior's strange choice. Many of them had assumed Lyra was powerless and that Kane's loyalty would fade. Their laughter turned to unease as reports of the ship's efficiency and sudden victories reached them. "She is no ordinary woman," one noble hissed. "And he has trained her. What have we underestimated?" The warning went unanswered, but Lyra felt it in small ways. Shadows seemed to move differently. Voices carried faint threats, and she sensed the stirrings of danger she could not yet name. Kane, however, remained a constant. His presence was calm and steady. "Do not fear what you do not understand," he told her. "You will learn. And when the time comes, you will be ready." For Lyra, those words became a mantra. She trained, observed, and quietly explored her abilities. The weakest woman was no longer afraid to be seen. She was beginning to awaken, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The human ship drifted silently through the outer rim of the galaxy, far from the bright stars of populated systems. Inside, a quiet tension filled the air. Commander Darius Kane had begun to sense it. The whispers of the Alien Council were no longer idle threats. Something in Lyra stirred unease across the political landscape, though no one had spoken her name aloud. Lyra herself could feel the change. Her dreams had grown restless, filled with flashes of distant worlds, grand halls, and voices that called her by a name she had never used. She had tried to ignore them, but the visions were becoming stronger, almost insistent. That evening, Kane found her alone in the observation deck, her violet eyes fixed on the swirling nebula outside. He approached carefully, sensing the weight of what she carried. "You've been quiet," he said softly. I saw things again," she admitted. "Memories. Or visions. I'm not sure which. They feel like they belong to me, but I do not remember living them." Kane nodded. He had noticed these signs before. "It is time to tell you the truth," he said. "You are not just Lyra, the girl who survived the Krovan raids. You are more." Lyra turned to him, startled. "More? What do you mean?" "You are the last surviving heir of the Aurelian dynasty," Kane said. "A family that ruled great worlds centuries ago, thought to be extinct after a coup by the Alien Council. Your family was betrayed, scattered, and hunted, but somehow you survived, hidden, unnoticed." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had suspected she was different, had always felt the strange power inside her, but she had never imagined she was royalty, the last of an ancient bloodline. I am," she whispered. A queen?" Kane shook his head gently. "Not yet, but one day, yes. Right now, you must understand the truth. You are not weak. The Council underestimated you. They thought you were nothing. That was their mistake." Her hands trembled. Memories she had not lived began to surface. Fragments of royal ceremonies, grand halls, and people who called her heir. She realized she had been hiding all this time, pretending to be fragile so that those who wanted her dead would overlook her. You mean I faked it?" she asked, voice shaking. Kane nodded. "You survived by hiding your true strength. And now that you have been chosen, The Council knows the game has changed. You are no longer invisible. Lyra's mind raced. But I am not ready. I cannot lead. I do not know how to rule. I cannot command fleets or armies. I only survived because I hid. You've survived more than most rulers ever will, Kane said firmly. And you will learn. I will not leave your side. The stars shone coldly beyond the ship's observation windows, a silent reminder that the galaxy never slept. Commander Darius Kane paced the deck, his mind sharpened for the challenge he knew was coming. Lyra stood nearby, quiet but alert, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. Since learning her true identity as the last heir of the Aurelian dynasty, Lyra had trained harder than ever. Kane had guided her carefully, teaching her control, patience, and the careful use of her growing powers. But training alone would not prepare them for the danger that now approached. Across the galaxy, the Alien Council had united factions that had long feuded. They saw Lyra as a threat to their power, a girl once dismissed as weak, now revealed as a hidden heir capable of influencing entire worlds. They sent fleets, assassins, and spies, all determined to capture or eliminate her before the galaxy learned the truth. The first sign of their intent came suddenly. Sensors detected a large blockade forming at the edge of the neutral system of Viridian. Hundreds of ships, sleek and armed, moved in perfect formation, cutting off all escape. Blockade detected. The ship's AI reported. Enemy fleet approximately 300 vessels. All weapons active, Kane's jaw tightened. Crew battle stations. Shields up. Weapons ready. Lyra, stay with me on the command bridge. We will face them together. Lyra nodded, her hands trembling slightly but steadying as she concentrated. The energy inside her pulsed faintly, responding to her fear, her determination, and the pressure of the moment. As the alien fleet advanced, Kane ordered a series of maneuvers that would normally be considered impossible for their smaller ship. Lyra placed her hands lightly on the control panel. Almost instinctively, she directed power to the shields, recalibrated the navigation systems, and helped predict enemy movement. Every adjustment she made, no one could see, but it made the difference between survival and destruction. The first wave of enemy fighters arrived, swooping like deadly shadows. Laser fire streaked across space, illuminating the darkness with brief, bright flashes. The human crew responded with precision, but the enemy was relentless. For the first time, Lyra felt her powers surge. Instinctively, she extended her senses beyond the ship, feeling the flow of energy around them. She guided the shields, deflected missiles, and warned of unseen attacks. Kane watched her silently, heart pounding but confident. The weakest woman he had chosen was now the key to their survival. Minutes stretched like hours as the battle continued. Enemy ships fell one by one, torn apart by combined human tactics and Lyra's subtle guidance. The crew could hardly believe it. Their tiny vessel maneuvered with the efficiency of a much larger fleet. One of the alien commanders, observing the battle from afar, grew alarmed. The girl, she is controlling them, he hissed. We underestimated her. Prepare full assault. The enemy's next wave struck with even greater force. Kane barked orders, his voice steady, guiding the crew through the chaos. Lyra, though afraid, felt a strange calm. She understood that her powers were not just her own. They were a part of the ship, the crew, and the fight for survival. With a sudden surge, she extended her abilities fully, channeling her energy into the ship's systems. Shields glowed brightly, weapons fired with perfect accuracy, and navigation moved with uncanny precision. Enemy ships faltered, unable to predict the strange patterns that guided Kane's vessel. The blockade began to break apart. Ships scattered in confusion, their attack patterns disrupted by forces they could not see or understand. Kane seized the moment, ordering a full strike. The human ship, small but deadly, cut through the enemy fleet, leaving them in disarray. When the battle ended, silence fell over the observation deck. Lyra's hands rested lightly on the console, her body trembling from exhaustion. Kane placed a hand on her shoulder, proud but wary. You did it, he said quietly. You saved us all. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide. I did? You did, Kane confirmed. You were more than anyone expected. More than anyone could imagine. You are not weak. You are a force the galaxy cannot ignore. The crew slowly recovered, stunned by what had happened. Marcus shook his head, muttering, I'll never doubt her again. Not after this. Even Lila Tran, who had always been cautious, smiled. She's incredible. Kane was right, she is powerful. Word of the battle spread quickly. Messages from nearby systems arrived, full of astonishment. The human who had chosen the weakest woman now commanded a ship that had outmaneuvered hundreds of enemy vessels. Rumors traveled faster than the speed of light. Lyra, the once invisible girl, had awakened her powers and changed the course of the fight. But the victory came with consequences. Across the galaxy, the Alien Council convened emergency sessions. They realized that their underestimation had cost them dearly. If Lyra survived and grew stronger, their power could crumble. Plans were made in secret, fleets repositioned, and new agents dispatched. Lyra, though exhausted, felt a strange sense of calm. She had faced her fears, seen her abilities in action, and survived. The timid girl who had once hid in the shadows was gone. In her place stood a young woman of strength, skill, and quiet authority. Kane watched her silently, heart swelling with pride. She had grown faster than anyone could have imagined, not because of weapons or training alone, but because of her courage, her instinct, and the power that had always been hers. "We've only begun," Kane said, his voice low. "The Council will not stop. They will come again, stronger and more determined. But so will we. You are not alone in this, Lyra. Never forget that." Lyra nodded, her violet eyes steady. "I will not forget. I will be ready. I will not hide anymore." For the first time, Kane allowed himself a faint smile. The galaxy had underestimated both of them, the human warrior and the girl he had chosen. And together they were a force no one could ignore. As the ship prepared to leave the battle zone, Lyra stood at the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with threats and uncertainty, but she felt a new sense of purpose. She was no longer the weakest woman. She was the last heir of a powerful dynasty, a protector of humanity, and a rising force the Alien Council could never control. Somewhere in the darkness, new dangers stirred, but Lyra did not fear them. She had learned to trust Kane, to trust herself, and to face what came with courage. The shadows of the galaxy had grown restless, but they would soon learn that the girl they had dismissed as weak was far stronger than any of them could imagine. And Commander Darius Kane, who had chosen her when no one else would, stood beside her, ready to face the storms that were coming. Together they would show the galaxy that strength was not measured by size, wealth, or appearance, but by courage, loyalty, and the will to rise when others fell. The human ship cut through the endless darkness of space. Stars glimmered like distant fires, but none could match the tension building aboard. Commander Darius Kane stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic map. The Alien Council had united nearly half the galaxy against them, determined to capture Lyra, the girl they had once dismissed as weak. Lyra stood beside him, her violet eyes steady. The weight of her legacy pressed upon her, yet for the first time she did not feel fear. She had grown beyond the timid girl who once hid in shadows. Her powers had matured, subtle but undeniable, and the bond with Kane had strengthened her resolve. Kane turned to her. "They're coming, Lyra. The Council will throw everything they have at us, but we are ready. Together we will face them." Lyra nodded, her hand resting lightly on the console. She could feel the energy of the ship responding to her presence, her power flowing through systems, predicting enemy movements, stabilizing shields, and guiding weapons. She no longer needed to hesitate. She understood that her strength was a part of her, not something to hide, but something to wield with care. The first wave of enemy fleets appeared on sensors, dark shapes moving in perfect formation. Their ships outnumbered Kane's by 100 to 1, sleek war machines designed for destruction. The crew braced themselves, but Kane remained calm, exuding confidence that anchored them. "Lyra," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Focus. This is not just a battle. This is a test of who we are. Not just me, not just you, all of us." Lyra inhaled deeply. She let the energy within her settle. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out with her senses, feeling the currents of the enemy fleet, sensing their coordination, predicting their attacks before they launched. The first shots rang out, cutting streaks of light across the void. Human weapons fired, but many missed their targets. Lyra instinctively guided the ship's systems, adjusting trajectories, rerouting power to shields, and countering attacks in ways the crew could not comprehend. Shields stabilized, Marcus shouted, eyes wide in disbelief. Weapons recalibrated, Lila Tran added, her voice shaking with awe. Kane's hand rested on the command console. He watched Lyra silently, proud beyond words. The girl who had once been called the weakest woman was now the heart of their defense, the pulse that kept the ship alive. Hours passed in a blur. Waves of enemy ships attacked relentlessly, but Lyra's guidance allowed Kane's crew to survive, counter, and strike back. Their small human vessel moved with the efficiency of a much larger fleet, outmaneuvering, outsmarting, and surprising the alien attackers at every turn. Then came the enemy commander, the mastermind of the Council's assault. His flagship,